Welcome back to the Subspace Games YouTube channel. I know it's been a while since we've done any videos, but let's go ahead and jump right back in and see if we can get this project going again. The next thing I wanted to do, if you remember the last time in the video, we had basically gotten a level kind of roughed out as far as having some basic objects and things like that. Now we're going to take it a step further and let's jump into Blender and see if we can design a level in Blender using 3D modeling instead of Shiva. As you probably noticed, the modeling tools in Shiva are pretty basic. For those of you that don't know what Blender is a open source project that's similar to 3ds Max or Maya or some of those other 3D modeling tools. It is supported by the community. Like I said, it is open source. There's a lot of great things that you can do with it. So obviously it's free and that you can download it. I encourage you, if you find usefulness in it, that you actually support them. There's a lot of things on their site that are for sale as far as DVDs and things to help you learn Blender, and all those all the money goes towards the Blender Foundation. Anyways, from the main website at blender.org, you just go to the download page, and I'm using Blender 2.61, which is the most recent version as of December 14th, 2011. There are pretty recent releases, or they release new releases often, so keep up to date on that. Alright, so once you get it installed, you're going to get something like this. This is the splash screen, and if you just click on the splash screen, it's going to get you to the interface. Blender has, if you've used Blender before, maybe in the 2.49 days, it was a little bit more archaic, hard to figure out. Those that used it a lot loved it, but this new version is a little bit easier to use. There's some better layout and better menus for those of us that never really got into the old format. You'll see the basic layout is the default model of a cube. There's a light source and there's a camera. Now in Blender, you do your selecting of objects by right-clicking. So as we move from different objects, I'm just right-clicking on it. That selects the object. You'll see certain things change. For instance, here's the scene graph. You know, if you want to, you can drag these things to make them a little bit bigger, but you can see that as I select them, it switches from, you know, the lamp to the camera to the cube. I'm not going to go into great details about Blender because there's a lot of great videos out there that do a better job. I'm just going to go through the basics of what we need to know for doing our level. The first thing that I like to do, and this is kind of a personal preference thing, you guys can do it however you want, but I come into the user preferences, go to input, and I change the orbit style to turntable. I encourage you to come in and play with some of these settings, the zoom settings, the orbit style, which is how everything rotates. There's lots of settings in here, so if you see something that's not working quite the way you want it, I encourage you to come in and change it. Also, there's this area. It's incredibly customizable. If you know something that you want to change as far as a hotkey, you can come in here. As you notice, I mean, there's a gazillion of these things, depending on, you know, what category you're looking at. So you can come in and change some of the hotkeys to suit your preference. All right, so let's jump back into here. Now, a couple of things we need to keep in mind when we're importing things into Shiva from Blender. The Y and the Z axis get flipped. There isn't a huge deal about that, just because when you're importing to Shiva, you have the ability to check a box that says flip the X or the Y and Z. What I prefer to do when I'm working in Blender is just to make things lay out better, is I keep the front of whatever I'm trying to model pointing in the X direction, which is the red arrow here. And that means when I import it into Shiva, it tends to be laid out a little bit better, but again, that is probably some personal preference. So let's get started. doing some basic level layout. I'm going to start with the cube here. If I hit the N key, oh, that was the S key. If I hit the escape key to get out of scale, which is what I did, hit the N key, you can get the object properties over here. We have scale, we have dimensions, you know, we have a lot of different things we can adjust. I'm going to go ahead and just adjust the dimensions. When I looked at the level we had done in Shiva, it looked like the depth of the level was, if I remember correctly, was about 400. So I'm going to change the X dimension to 400. You'll see that it immediately, you know, takes off. You can use the scroll wheel to scroll in and out of the view here. I'm going to leave it kind of in a little bit closer for now. The Y, which is in Blender, is the width here. We're going to go with let's go with 60 for now. See how that turns out. And then the Z direction, you know what, actually let's, yeah, 60 is fine. In the Z direction, let's go with something like 5. Now I'm doing 5 because what I'm going to do is I am going to make this, what we've just laid out is basically the floor. I want to keep it kind of thick. I don't know if you remember way back when, but we want to keep the walls a little bit thick because the collision detection works better with thick walls. There may be a way that we can kind of work our way around that later, but for now we're going to keep it like this just to keep things easy. Alright, so if I click back into the viewport and I scroll out, okay, you can see that we have a, you know, a big floor basically. You know what, I might want to go a little bit wider. It looks a little out of whack there, so let's go 80 maybe, I don't know. Let's see how that works out. Okay, so in order to make the level, we're going to need walls and everything. So in Blender, we're in object mode right now. You can see that down here, which means that we're dealing with the object as a whole. This cube, even though it's been squashed and stretched and everything, is still a cube. You can see that as it's selected, it says cube. If we hit our tab key, you can see that that switches us into edit mode. This means that we can go in and edit vertices and sides and faces, whatever we need to do. So I'm going to scroll in, zoom in a little bit here. I'm going to switch to face select mode. We have these different selects, whether it's vertex or line or face. And if I right click on this face, then you can see that just that face is selected. Now if you think of that as the floor, this is kind of off to the right side of the floor. I'm going to hit the E key, which is extrusion. And you can see that I can move it. This is just basically taking and making another face and expanding it beyond where we were originally. Just to keep things nice and easy, I'm just going to type in 5. So if I hit 5 on the keyboard, it's going to lock it to 5 units. And then hit enter, and we're done extruding. So now if the little black dot, if you can see that, that's the center of that face. So if I right click on that dot, it's going to select that face. We're also going to hit E for this one, which is extrusion again. It always extrudes perpendicular to the face itself. So if I hit 20 on this one, it's going to extrude it straight up. So now we have a bit of a wall there. You know what, maybe if I hit Control Z to undo, hit extrude again, let's go up 40. Okay, zoom out a little bit. Now you can see we're starting to get the look of like a long hallway or something. So let's come over here, zoom in a bit, hit E for extrude, 5 units. We'll select that upper face there, hit E to extrude, go 40. We now have a bit of a more of a hallway there. Let's do the ends here. So extrude 5 units. Do the top, extrude E key 40. And flip around. Do the same thing over here. Extrude 5 units. And extrude 40. Okay, so that's the basics there. We now have a hallway that we can save. In fact, let me do that. I'm going to hit save. I already did one earlier that was called test, so I'm going to keep that. So double click on test and it saves it. To get it ready for import into Shiva, all we have to do is go to export, and export is Collada. And you can see I already did one here, test. So now we have Collada exported. If we open up Shiva, I'm not going to load the game or anything. I'm just going to go to import, import model. I already selected it, so there it is. This is that box I was talking about. Convert from Z to Y up axis. You'll want to do that, and you can scale it if you want. We'll leave it at 1. We'll import. I had already done this before, so it's going to ask if I want to overwrite, and I'll say yes. We're done importing. So now if I come to my models, double click on test, and then zoom out pretty far, you can see that there it is. Now it's kind of black and everything. That's because we haven't applied a material to it. Actually, let's go over here and we'll just give it the ball material from before. You guys can't see that because it's off the screen. Drag and drop, and voila, you can see that we now have our little level. We're going to go through and do a lot more, add extra textures and things like that. Not make it just a hallway, but add more features. We're also not going to leave these corners the way they are, but I just wanted to let you see how you can do the basics in Blender. It's pretty similar to some of the stuff we've done before, but this is going to get us started. Next time we will jump in there, we'll make some modifications to this